In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the one God to whom all praise is due, the Lord of the worlds. To Allah alone do we submit and seek refuge. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. We thank Allah for Moses and the Torah. We thank him for Jesus and the Injil, or the Gospel. We thank him for Muhammad and the Holy Quran. Peace be upon all of these worthy servants of God. But as a black man growing up in America without a true knowledge of God's self or the true religion of Allah, I thank Allah over and over and over again for raising up in our midst a divine leader, teacher, and guide to teach us, the deprived and mentally dead black people of America, the knowledge of self and others. I'm speaking of the man who taught me what I'm about to teach you, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I greet you, all of you, with the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. I'm very happy and thankful to Allah to be back at Mosque Mariam. It is good to see you, and since it is a little hot, by next week, with the help of Allah, this air conditioning should be as it should be. So I will get right to the point. I want to talk to us today about the tremendous domestic violence that permeates the black community in particular. There never was a time that so many of us are killing us. So many of us are abusing us. There never was a time when black women were so abused and misused as it is today. There never was a time when black children have been so abused and misused as we find it today. The violence in the home is so great. The abuse in the home is so great that every teacher or leader of any consequence should begin to look at the destruction of the black home and the black family and the black community and address these concerns with truth. Why are black men beating women as women are being beaten today? Many of you that are married suffer because your husbands beat you up. There are many in the Muslim world that think that it is okay to beat your wife. This is not the conduct of a true man of God, beating women. A true man of God knows how to handle women without beating and abusing them. The problem today is we as men have lost the knowledge of how to handle ourselves. So it becomes exceedingly difficult for us to handle our mate, yet nature forces us to come together. But we don't know what to do with each other after we come together. We make each other's lives miserable. And so, wife beating is on the increase. And I don't even want to say wife beating, because men aren't marrying women that much today. There's a lot of living in and beating up. But marriage is like a dying institution. What is the cause of this? We know we got the problem, but we want to get to the root cause of why there is this ever-increasing domestic violence. Now, you may not want to believe this, but not only is this happening in the black community, but it is happening on an increasing scale in the white community and in the community of so-called civilized peoples of the earth. Female abuse, child abuse, not only violence in terms of physical punishment, but sexual assault in the home. Men sneaking up on their own biological daughters. Fathers abusing their stepdaughters, or beating and brutalizing their stepchildren, male. Let's look at what some of the statistics are on this horrible domestic condition. According to Dr. Morris Jeff, who writes A Crisis in Black Sexual Politics, he says, quote, "It is now evident that murders are not committed for the most part by strangers. To the contrary, a person is more likely to be a victim of murder at the hands of a friend, a relative, an acquaintance, or a lover." Let's stop there a minute. If you open your Bible, and the story is also repeated in the Holy Quran, the Bible opens in the Genesis story of a family being created by God. Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel. The first violence took place between two brothers. In the same family, one brother killing his brother. In the Bible again, you have the story of Joseph and his brethren. It's not outside the family, it's right in the family, where envy, jealousy, enmity, strife causes members of the family to come together to kill Joseph. They agreed, however, to put him in a pit and to sell him off into bondage. Family members. Look at the prophet David and his son Absalom. It wasn't an outsider that became his great enemy, it was someone from his own loins. And when you get into the New Testament and you look at Jesus, you find it wasn't an outsider that betrayed Jesus. It was one of the members of his own circle of disciples. In the history of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Allah says to the Prophet, among your wives and your children, there is an enemy for you, so be aware of them. You have not had an enemy till an enemy rises up right out of your own loins. You have not had an enemy until the woman that you sleep with or the man with whom you sleep becomes your mortal enemy. Because those closest to you observe you, learn your weaknesses, and then use your weaknesses with your enemies to help destroy. All of this is written in family. In the history of Prophet Muhammad and the history of Islam, it is hypocrisy among believers that led to the death of the third caliph of Islam, Uthman. It is hypocrisy among the believers that led to the murder of Ali. It is hypocrisy among the believers that led to the murder of Hussein. And wickedness among a family, but a spiritual family, that led to the desire to kill the very bloodline of the prophet. Now, these things are not on the page of history for conjecture, for what was, is. And if we do not deal with what is effectively, it shall be. But I am confident with the help of Almighty God, Allah, that though the nation of Islam in the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, was not able to uproot hypocrisy, and that's why Islam is a divided house today, because there are hypocrites posing as true believers. But today, Allah will manifest all hypocrisy. And every low-lifed family member, whether it be the wife or the husband, whether it be the son or the daughter-in-law or the son-in-law, nobody will escape manifestation today. For the scripture says, whatsoever is done in the dark, he will bring it out into the light. And in this day, God intends to set the mother-in-law at variance with the daughter-in-law, and the son-in-law at variance with the father-in-law, and they of a man's own household will be his worst enemies, and two will be laying in the bed, and God will take one and he will leave one. This is Bible. Two will be grinding at the mill, and God will take one and he will leave one. The Quran says, if your mother or your father, your kinfolk are dearer to you, if business is dearer to you than obedience to Allah and his messenger, then wait till Allah brings his command to pass. You are not really a true believer unless you can turn your back on your mother and your father and your sister and your brother for the sake of God. Listen, I didn't say disrespect your mother. I didn't say disrespect your father. But you are not a Muslim today unless you can recognize hypocrisy in your mother or in your wife or in your sons or in your daughter, and then deal with a hypocrite as a hypocrite should be dealt with, even though they be your near of kin. We like to tolerate the hypocrisy in our families, the wickedness in our families, because that's our family, and become hard on others whom we don't look at as family. But I want to tell you something. God don't care nothing about your bloodline. God will wipe out all kind of bloodlines. God is more interested in the line of faith and the line of spirit. This is why today no Muslim can think because you wear the name of Allah that will keep you preserved. In the Gulf War, many Muslims with the name Muhammad were killed. The world of Islam is in confusion. Why? Because they followed the path of the Prophet? No. Because of deviation from his path. And unless we, as Muslims or Christians or believers in God, come back to the path of God, we will never be able to correct the wrongs in our own lives and in our families as well as in our communities. Now, so if murder is more likely to take place not between strangers but between friends and relatives and acquaintances or lovers, and males between the ages of 15 and 44 are the most vulnerable of all. Those between 20 and 24 are even more susceptible to be murdered. This is particularly true if these black males live in the South in a metropolitan center where economic levels are low and housing is substandard. As a victim, the black male is likely to be killed by another black male who is 3 to 4 years younger, and the weapon used is primarily a gun. I'm going to say something about weapons in just a moment. Black on black homicide will most often pertain to a killing of passion, a spur of the moment episode, yet an act definitely with the intent to kill. This act of murder among the blacks today will be triggered by a quarrel or a dispute over, number one, money, number two, sex, or some third party. And let's think of why we kill each other. Money, sex, or some third party interfering in a relationship. And both parties, it is seen statistically, may have drunk some alcohol just before the violent encounter. The incident can happen at any time, but it has proved that it happens most near Christmas or in July or August. Why Christmas? When Christians are supposed to be celebrating the birthday of a servant, a righteous and holy servant of God, it's more likely that murder will take place during Christmas because they sell more liquor during Christmas than any other time of the year. Something that Christians should be thinking about. Now, a female has a better chance of avoiding a homicide, though being black reduces her life chances. 20% of homicides involve women as victims and offenders. A black female who is a victim of homicide is usually killed by a black male. and the lethal instrument will be the gun, and the place will be in the home. Now just think about that. When the female kills the male, it is usually in the kitchen. When the male kills the female, it is usually in the bedroom. I don't know what that says. But we're going to do a little tidbit of analysis here. Now, everyone in America, according to the Constitution, has the right to bear arms. But where black people are concerned, the Constitution really was not designed for us. And they do not want black people with guns because they feel that at some point you're going to wake up. And when you wake up, you may point the gun in the right direction. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did not want us with any weapons. Not because he wanted us to be defenseless in the face of our oppressor, but he wanted us without weapons because he knew the tendency in us to settle all our disputes with a gun. And since most females are killed in the bedroom, and most males that are killed by females are killed in the kitchen, that means she uses a knife, usually the kitchen knife, the one that you use to carve your turkey. She carves her husband. Usually in the bedroom is where the arguments, those violent male-female arguments take place, and usually we got a gun somewhere in the bedroom. And in passion, you reach for the gun, boom, wife gone, husband gone. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, take all weapons out of your house. Why? So that we could be defenseless? No. So that we could build the intelligence to deal with our problems properly and not rely on a weapon to solve our problem. Most of the people who are in prison today, having killed some friend, some neighbor, some husband or wife, are living in intense regret because they really didn't want to do it, but in anger they did it. And if the weapon were not there, they might not have done it. Now, you know, people have all kind of reasons why they say we do these things. But most of the reasons that the social scientists give are really not adequate. They say it's due to dense population. Overcrowding is the instigating source of homicide. That's a sick answer. We don't agree with that answer. We are disproportionately represented in homicide statistics because we are constrained from expressing our will to be in direct control of the course of our own destiny. It's getting closer to the truth. The black-on-black homicide statistic is a barometer of our oppression here in America. We live in a white-dominated system that on one hand enforces a prohibition against taking out aggression on white people who frustrate and oppress us. You don't take out none of your frustration on white people. None of it. Yet, they are the oppressor. They are the exploiter. But you don't shoot none of them. You don't attack none of them. In fact, the way you've been taught religion, Your mind is so messed up till you can hardly see yourself shooting somebody white. But you can see yourself in a second shooting somebody black. In fact, you constantly say, I'll shoot that nigga. I'll kill that nigga. But you don't say, I'll kill that hunky. Or I'll kill that white man. You don't talk like that. Yet 90% of our problems started with oppression and slavery from white people. And it is perpetrated on us by the same white people. Well, but the system rewards, sanctions, and legitimizes black on black aggression. You can shoot black people and get bail and be out on the street to shoot somebody else. You know that's a fact. You can aggress black people, beat black people, rob black people, and in a few days, you out on the street doing it some more. But the moment you go out of the norm and shoot a white person, they throw away the key. Rape a white woman, rob white people. This is a dangerous nigga. Keep him off the street for a long time. But if you show that your hatred is aimed at your own people, they will reward you for abusing your people. Now, this is very sad. Now, here's some other problems in this domestic violence. We want to try to wrap it all together. Hopefully, it'll make sense to you. 1 out of every 9 black men is a homosexual. At birth, black males outnumber black females. If you check birth statistics, there are more black boys born than black girls. But by the time we reach 18, the thing switches, and now there are more females than males. What's happening to the black male? As the black male is being systematically destroyed, 1 black man out of 9 becoming a homosexual is hurting the cause of the advancement of the people. We cannot afford to lose 1 black man to murder, suicide, prison, or homosexuality. In addition to homicide and suicide, destruction of black males is also affected by drug abuse and disproportionate job loss. Most of the brothers can hardly find a job. So there's some economic problems here that lead to frustration of desire. Brothers, when we get through today, we hope to show us that we are in a very sick mental state. Therefore, we take out our hurt on each other, and particularly on the female and on the children. Now, today, sisters, I want to talk to you about how you can keep this man's fist out of your mouth. I know you want to hear that subject. I want to help you, sisters, to understand what you can do for this male who desperately wants to become a man and has all the potential to be a great man. But if you don't know how to handle him, he will live in your mouth like a dentist. And your problem, sisters, is you really don't know how to handle today's black man. I want to help you with that. You got a few minutes? Very good. Now, did you know that at the Robert Taylor homes, the figures reveal that 93% of the households in the Robert Taylor homes are headed by a single parent? 93%. And 83% of those are on welfare. And while the Robert Taylor homes is 0.5% of this city's population, this racially segregated high-rise ghetto accounts for 11% of the city's murders, 9% of the rapes, and 10% of the serious assaults. Now, let's take a look at child abuse and then go right to the causes. When you have black men who don't have jobs, it's very difficult for them to stay in a home that constantly reminds them of their impotence. So they flee the home. And most of you sisters don't have a stable relationship with a male or a man. Many of you were married, had children, divorced, and have babies, but no stable relationship with a male, a man. So men are just abandoning and neglecting their children. That's a form of abuse. Brothers, we make babies, right? But we have a responsibility, don't we? But if you don't have a job, no way to make a dollar, men don't want to stay there and face the fact, I can't hack it, man. So you leave the woman. She can get on welfare. You out of it. You gone. But the sex drive doesn't diminish because you don't have a job. In fact, the sex drive may increase because every avenue of pleasure is closed to you except the avenue that you can control, which is sex. That's terrible. So the more sex you have, the worse you feel about it, because babies are coming, abortion is increasing. Some of the sisters don't really want no baby from none of us. Say, no, I don't want no baby. Not from you or nobody else. So the abortion clinic is full of black women killing their babies. Is that right? You don't call that abuse, child abuse. You don't even call it murder. You just say, I took care of business so I could continue to play. Let's look at this. Most abuse of children in the home is at the hands of females, usually mothers, usually very young. Most of you sisters that have a baby before you mature, you really weren't psychologically ready emotionally ready for a child, but you got one because sexually you were, how should I put this? I want to say it exactly right. You know, you live in a society where sex is so worshiped that you can't turn on the radio. Sex is in every song, every rap that you young people recite. The lyrics are low down, filthy, terrible. You can't learn your lessons, but you can learn the rap. You can learn the filth. And the way you show how down you are is to say it along with the artist and don't miss a beat, with all the low down expression and the body movement to go along with it. So sex is being fed into the young men and young women, and their natural drive is being increased to the point where they have no more control over their own bodies. Oh, it's a hell of a thing. You can't tell these young girls and boys we shouldn't commit fornication. You can't tell that to grown men and women. Don't say we shouldn't commit adultery. That is the law. Satan has gone under the law of Moses and Jesus and Muhammad and has tapped the very law of nature itself. I want you to listen to me. Muslims, when Satan said to Allah, I'm going to come after them in thy straight path. I'll come to them from before them, from behind them, from their left side and from their right side. And you won't find most of them thankful. I'll make all of them deviate. Look, the law of God is right. We shouldn't commit fornication. We shouldn't commit adultery. These are acts that destroy family, destroys the peace of homes, and it breaks the brotherhood. Huh? But when you live in a society that constantly is feeding the sex drive, and then there's no monitoring male-female relations, people fall in love and you leave them alone without chaperone, without supervision, then the law of nature subverts the law of you shouldn't commit fornication. You all not watching your children. You're too busy watching soaps. You all not watching your young people. You're too busy pursuing a living. And you think your youngsters are watching themselves? I expose myself to some of these raps. And to some of the stuff that's on the radio today. I tell you what it made me want to do. I got so angry. I just want to grab the rapper and rip out his throat. But I know it's not his fault. He's just following the trend. You have become human swine. Let me just get it right to you. just human pigs. Yeah, a female swine and a male swine. Yeah. You are lovers of filth and indecency. You don't have a nose, sisters. You have a snout like a swine. No, I want you to listen to me. Don't get upset, Piggly Wiggly. You sisters and brothers too, you got your nose sniffing around looking for garbage. Filth that you can use to slander, defame. Huh? Garbage gossipers, slanderers, defamers. Young men, what's the latest? What's happening? You don't want to hear nothing of value, nothing of truth, nothing of righteousness, nothing uplifting. You want the garbage because you have become a swine. I want you to hear me now. Human pigs. And God hates the pig. What do you think God thinks of human beings who act like a hated animal? A swine. My son, one day, a great comedian visited my home, and we had dinner, and he invited me to his show. My son was trying to tell me, Daddy, don't go. But I said, well, let me see what the show is like. I got in the limousine and we drove on over to this big stadium that basketball teams play in. Place was packed. And my little brother got up to do his act. And it was kind of raunchy. Not kind of raunchy. It was pretty rough. I stopped looking at him. I started looking at the people. Because this was not funny to me. As I started looking at women, that's what I'm talking about, sisters, you. They were eating up the filth. Wow! I said, well, look at this. I said, the lower down he went, the more they loved it. Just, can't you see what's happening to you? You're being made nothing. When somebody feeds you filth and you love it, and Jesus said, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Then what have we become? We abandon our children. Physical assault going on. Sexual assault is probably in this audience of women less than 100 who can say that they've come this far in life and they haven't been abused by a father, an uncle, a brother, somebody in their own immediate family that they look to with honor and respect. It's probably hardly 100 sisters who can say, I have not been abused. That's pretty rough. And on my last tour, as I spoke around this country to thousands and thousands of people, when I mentioned abuse of girls by their fathers, you could see the women. Tears started running down their cheeks because they can't hardly tell their own mothers what their own fathers are doing because the mothers don't want to hear it. So they suffer in silence. And as I spoke, you could see the tears rolling down their cheek. They're saying, somebody understands my suffering. Now, most often, the males who are abusive to the children are not biologically related to the children, but are in a relationship with the female head of the household. If the male lives there, it is usually temporary. His presence is then followed by a period of time where there is no male presence. Then a different male is brought into the home. Now look at what you're doing, sisters. This cycle creates confusion among the children as to the authority in the home, and it creates resentment as well. Do you know what it does to a male child to hear his mother carrying on in the next room with a strange man that is not his father? Do you know what you're doing? You don't care no more. We have become so much like animals that we will bring a man into the home knowing that your children are there, and you'll put the children to look at the TV while you go in the next room. Performing acts with strangers. The poor man has no job, so you invite him to live with you. But all the while he's living with you, he'll abuse your male children and keep his eye on your growing daughters. Did you know that young male children are actually ordered out of the home at a young age, even 8 or 9 years old? Some of these men that you take up as lovers, they can't stand your sons from a previous marriage, so they'll order your son out of the house, and you will put your son out because you want the love and affection of this man. And your son is in the street at 8 or 9 years old. He don't have no peace in that house because when he comes, he sees his mother in a degraded condition. Some of these young boys and girls see their mother and father, or the mother and the lover, cutting up drugs and cocaine in the kitchen. Sisters, brothers, this is not make-believe. This is real. This is happening. Some of you are so silly, you'll smoke your reefer and blow the reefer in the face of your children. Some of you are so silly, you'll pour a drink for yourself and give one to your little children. You don't know what alcohol is doing to you, what reefer and cigarette is doing to you, but you do it to your children because your ignorance and death you pass on to your children. Very often a child is assaulted or killed merely because he or she is present at the outbreak of violence between the male and female adults. Man. In other words, black children are in an environment where they have no one with the desire and the power to protect them. In a recent article in the paper, a Chicago man was charged late Monday with killing his girlfriend and her 2 children and setting their bodies on fire in their South Side home. This is really sick. The lady's name is Wanda Gardner, and the man stabbed her twice in the chest at her home on South Damon Avenue. Gardner's 2 children, Bathsheba, 14, a student at Hirsch High School, and Quentin, 11, a student at St. Callistus Grammar School, was strangled to death. Then this man set the house on fire, burned the bodies. Now look, I'm just about ready to go after causes, and then we can close this out. But beloved brothers and sisters, a black man was found recently frying his 3-month-old baby in a skillet because she wouldn't stop crying. Today, if you chastise your children, the neighbors call, they come and they snatch your children from you. So we got all these problems, our babies in foster homes, our babies on the state because somebody said we were abusive. And then that means that those of us who want to discipline our children and discipline them properly, we get afraid to discipline your own children for fear that somebody's going to charge you with child abuse. It was an elderly West Indian lady who was a dear friend of my mother. She was not a well-educated woman, but she was brilliant. And she put all her children through college. She was beating her child one day, and the neighbors called the police. And when the police came, she invited them in. The boy was hiding under the bed. And in her beautiful West Indian accent, she said, "Are you Irish?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Did your mother beat you?" He said, "Yes." "And did your father beat you too?" He said, "Yes." Mm-hmm. "Well, I beat in mine." She said, "I beat in mine so that you one day won't have to put that stick on him or put that gun on him." So if you don't mind, you can stand right there while I break your ass. She went up under the bed and snatched that boy out and beat him good, and then told the policeman, "Now, you go tell your mother and your father that a black woman is chastising her children to make them better." Now, the point I'm making is, if you're a man, and you are that, you and I cannot let anybody take away our right as a man. If you're a man and you have the capacity to father, today we want to show you, brother, that you can not only make children, but you can make money in a proper way to support your children. You do not have to abandon them and leave your wives alone to rear the children by herself. How did all this madness come about? What's the cause of it? Y'all all right? Keep me up on the time. I don't want to be too late. Did you know, sisters, that it's not just overcrowding in slums that has something to do with it? It's not just poverty and the loss of jobs with men that has something to do with it. But it's a very deep problem that deals with the nature of the male and the female. And this is where this book, Quran, is so significant. Because this book, Quran, is the key to unlock the mystery of nature. I'm going to say that again. This book, Quran, is the key to unlock the mystery of nature. This book, Quran, does not contain all of the words of God. For this book says, if all of the seas were as ink, with 7 more seas added to them, and all of the trees were as pens, you could never exhaust the words of Allah. Allah says in the Quran, everything that He created is a word. And there are things that you know of that He created, and there's a whole world of things that He created that we know nothing of. Huh? So this book, Quran, doesn't contain all the words of Allah, but what it does contain is the key to the nature of God, the nature of His creation. Now, what is the nature of woman? What is the nature of man? And why did God create male and female? What did He have in His mind? And how has Satan altered the plan of God for male and female? In the 4th chapter of the Quran, titled The Women, Allah says, O people, keep your duty to your Lord, who created you from a single being and created its mate of the same essence or the same kind, and spread from these two many men and women. Keep your duty to Allah, by whom you demand one of another your rights. Let's stop right there. First of all, our duty number 1 is to the Creator. He's first, foremost in all duty, above mother, above father, above friend. Our duty is to our Creator. Who will argue with that? Anybody? Can you show me a prophet or servant of God that you respect that didn't put duty to God above duty to anybody else? You love Jesus, right? Huh? Was Jesus a dutiful man to His Father? Isn't that the way He described God, as His Father? Was He dutiful to His Father? His Father came first. He had brothers and sisters. Did you know that? You didn't know it? Well, go read the 10th chapter of Mark. A man came to Jesus and said, your mother and your brothers are outside and they desire to speak with you. Jesus said, my mother and my brothers are in the temple with me. And in another place he said, my brother is he who doeth the will of my Father. So he was telling us that even though that's my mother, if she's not in this with me, I will honor her as a mother, but my real mother is on the inside here with me. My real brother is in submission to the will of God with me. You can't, brother. You cannot today keep friendship with those who refuse to submit to God. If you say, this is my best friend, and your best friend don't want to submit to God, and that's your best friend, and you stay with them, then you yourself don't want to submit to God. Because you cannot have as your best friend somebody that don't respect God or his will. You didn't hear me. You know that old saying, birds of a feather flock together? Well, if your best friend is a disbeliever, then you one too. Because your best friend as a believer in God has to be another believer in the God that you believe in. The Quran says, those of you who take friends of those who are outside of faith have strayed from the straight path. Yeah. Then it says, Allah, the messenger, and the true believers are your friends. Isn't that something? Well, brothers and sisters, where are we going with this? If, brothers and sisters, God had a purpose for the creation of male and female, and he gave each of us a duty not only to him, but a duty to one another. Then he gave us a nature that demands from the nature of our counterpart what it is to give. And when that counterpart does not give what nature demands, then there can be no peace between them. And if you don't even know what your nature demands, but you know you're upset with a man, but you don't know even why you're upset, and you all talk about women terribly. Men get together in barbershops. Their favorite subject is the no good woman. They get together in the mosques where the women aren't around, and their favorite subject is that jive woman. But the women are no better. You get together, and what is your conversation? My husband, he ain't this. Or that man, that's so-and-so. I'm just sick of him. Blah, 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 blah. And after you get through puking, you go right back to the same man, to the same woman, wipe your mouth of your puke, put a little Clorette in it so he won't smell it, or she won't smell it, and then that night when the lights go out, everybody gets happy for a minute. And then it's back to business as usual. People married to each other and can't stand one another, but they stay together for the sake of the children. Liars, hypocrites. Walk out in the company, in the public, holding hands with each other, and won't talk to each other behind the door. He comes home, if he's working, and if he's working in this world, and if he ain't working, when he comes home, his head is messed up. How do you greet him? Yeah, come on in. It's you, huh? You kind of late. Where you been? Poor man just got in the door. You ain't beautiful for him, you ugly. Your hair look like it's going every which way. You got on an old tired shirt. Maybe some of the drool from this morning is still. I know it's not that bad, sisters. I know it's not that bad. But you look a wreck. That's my point. He got to come home to a wreck. You wonder why he don't want to come home. You know why prostitution is a big business? Let me tell you. Not that I'm experienced. But you know, prostitution is getting to be heavy, big money. Prostitutes get the money that your children should be getting. Prostitutes getting the money, sisters, that you should be getting. The rent is not paid, but the prostitute is. No diapers for the baby, but there's plenty of lingerie for the prostitute. You know why? This man is in need of what God has put in you for him. But he, in his condition, does not know how to get it out of you. So just to live with you is a great trial for him. And for you too. There's no question about that now. But I'm dealing with domestic violence because unless you can deal effectively with this man's head, you can't handle this. This man will kill you today. He's a time bomb ready to explode every one of us. The level of stress on a black man is abnormal. He is so stressed out, sister. He don't want to abuse you. But when you jump on his case, you know how you do with your mouth. He feels he just can't take it no more. And all his frustration, he takes out on you and the children. What is the demand of nature in the man of you? And what is the demand in the nature of the woman for the man? Did you know that in the Quran it says, men are the maintainers of women with what Allah has made some of them to excel others, and with what they spend out of their wealth. Men are the maintainers of women. That's a very heavy statement. Women today say, I don't need no man to maintain me. I maintain myself. Very independent sisters today. But in some respects that's bad, in other respects it's good. But when we start getting away from the nature in which God created us, we start getting into problems. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. Allah says in the Quran that men are a degree above women. Now that may hurt feminists. I don't want to hurt your feelings. We're not a degree above you now. We're several degrees below you. Let me make that very plain. But in the nature in which God created you, brother, he created you a degree above the woman. Otherwise, the woman would not be able to look up to you. Anytime you got a woman that don't look up to you, brother, you got trouble. And anytime you're a man that she don't have nothing to look up to, You got some trouble. Now listen, please. This is serious. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that the self-creation of the originator out of darkness is a very painful process. Birth is a painful process. Not just pain to the woman, but it's pain to the child that is forming in the womb and coming through that canal. That's painful. So when the baby gets here, the first thing it needs is some comfort. So it cries, I'm here now. Huh? What you crying for? It was a hard journey getting here. Will you comfort me? And you put the baby where? On your breast. And you console it and you comfort it. That's so beautiful. But let me tell you something. God created man. Now I'm speaking Bible. In his image. The Quran says that God made man his vicegerent, which means you stand in the place of God. Stop right there. This woman is created to console a man. The Quran said that she is made to console the man. She is created that we may find peace and quiet of mind in her. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it like this: woman is man's heaven. No wonder we're in hell. Because we don't know what to do for and with a woman. Listen carefully. Allah says He is the source of peace. He is the abode of peace. And the greatest heaven is peace and contentment of mind. Then God gives you a woman to give you peace and contentment of mind, but you don't know how to handle her. Therefore, we end up what? With no peace, no contentment of mind. We in constant hell with our woman because we don't know how to bring out of her what is in her nature for us. And let me tell you something, brothers. There's not a woman on this earth that doesn't wish to give what nature has put within her to give. However, we must give first in order to get. You ever see a man go to a well? He drops his bucket down, he don't get nothing. Because he has to prime it first. You got to put something in order to get something out. And if you know what to put in here, you get out what God put in her for us. Let's see if this is true. The Quran says, men are the maintainers of women. What does maintenance mean here? To keep in existence or continuance. That's very heavy. It is a man's job to keep the woman in existence and in continuance. It is his duty to preserve her. It is his duty to keep her in due condition. It is his duty to keep her in operation and in force in the nature in which God created her to be. Oh man, that's a heavy responsibility. This is not dealing with money now, it's dealing with her head. It's dealing with her essence. It is dealing with her nature. You always want to deal with her from the navel down. You don't want to deal with her from the neck up. And brothers, she resents that. A woman resents a man only looking at her as an object of pleasure when God created her as a very serious manifestation of his own wisdom. Yeah. I hope you'll bear with me a few more minutes. Men are the maintainers of women. To maintain means to keep unimpaired. We are to keep her in the nature in which God created her. We are to keep her in a specified state. Who specified the state that she should be kept in? Who but her creator? And what is that state that she should be kept in? I'm going to give it to you really. I mean, it's so simple I could say it in a word, but I didn't come here just to give a word. I really wanted to finish this. A man's duty is to keep or hold her against attack. And the last thing in maintenance is to provide for her upkeep and to carry the expenses of the woman. See, the money part got to be there. Don't ever think that you're going to have a good relationship with a woman if you can't keep up some expenses. But at the same time, sister, in today's world where the man has to struggle so much for what little he gets, you have to keep your desires in line with what this man is able to afford, lest your desires drive him to do the wrong thing just to please you. Are you with me? Y'all all right? Now let's look at this. If that is our duty as a man, have we done it? I didn't hear you. Why are you talking so soft? Because you're not guilty. You're not guilty. No, sir, brothers, you're not guilty. You would have kept her if you had been left alone. But Satan has altered your nature. Now you have to take control again. It is not that you're guilty. If you're guilty today of being lazy to take control after you know better. No, brothers, you are not guilty. Sisters, they are not guilty. I'll tell you why in a minute. If a man's duty is to preserve and protect you and to upkeep you and to keep you in the specified state that God has made for you, this is why men fight over women. But you fight over her for the wrong reason. A man should die before he let a stranger contaminate his woman. A man should kill. You didn't hear me, brothers. I'll say it again, brother. We ought to be number one killers on the earth to keep any man away from our woman. Yes. When I was coming back from Iraq, before the war broke out, there was an African brother that I met in Baghdad. I met him once in Washington, D.C. He's a very wealthy black man. But he said to me, Brother Farrakhan, I would like to come back to the United States, but I would like to be a citizen and get a green card. You know what I mean? So I'm wondering, do you know any women or woman that I could take up with? In other words, we make an arrangement. My son is my witness. I said, brother, I will kill you. And he's a black man like myself. Well, you know what the hell I'll do to somebody else? He's my brother, but I'll chop his damn head off over this. Yeah, brother, I want you to hear me well, because we will kill you over these. Any of you that want protection, you come here. Yeah, we'll kill concrete over you. Do you know why? A man is not worth anything if he will not protect the woman that gives birth to his own nation. You're not guilty, brothers. You are a conquered male. And when the white man comes into our society and he goes to war with the men of that society that he may have free access to your woman. And he has gone to war with us and conquered us as men. And therefore we could not be to her what God demanded of us to be until we are made free of the mind and the power of our enemies that control and dominate our thinking. We have to be freed mentally, and that's why Jesus said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And once you are a free black man, then the thing you have to do is then free your woman and your children and become the man to her that God demands of you and me. What does God demand of us? God does not demand that we picket white people to build us a school. God don't demand for us as men to pick up a picket sign and go downtown and say, we want justice. If we are men, we'll get our heads together and take justice. We'll give ourselves justice. God does not ask a man to ask another man for freedom. God gives us the right to be free, and any man that want to be free, he'll earn his freedom by his own blood and sweat. in the black male is that potential. All of you wonderful brothers, is not one of you that is a dud, if you pardon that expression. Every one of you is potentially powerful. But you have to stop destroying yourself and one another, and you have to come into the knowledge that will allow you to be what God has created you to be. You can't be it without knowledge. Y'all all right? I'm almost finished. Now, you, sisters, when we build for you, it's our duty to build schools for her and the children. She's an intelligent, talented woman. I don't think we should be happy that our women are downtown in white folks' office buildings. As a man, I don't think we should be happy about that. I mean, we should be glad she got a job. You understand that, sisters? But we don't like no white man looking at you, or any other man for that matter, and you going to work for him, smiling at him because he giving you a job, and frowning at us because we can't produce one or don't have any. And then he's telling you these dirty jokes and hitting on you in his office building. We don't like that. As a man, brother, that chumps us off. But if we are the men that we believe we are, we establish schools. We say, okay, bring our children in there. Come on, teachers. Here's a job for you. Teach your babies. We as men set up factories. Sister got enough intelligence to run it. She's going to school. Then run your own factory. Let's create an environment in which our women can be protected. And in that environment, we crush our own men if they don't respect our own women. You ain't had a whooping until you get a righteous whipping from your brother who's trying to straighten you out when you disrespect her. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad told me, and I'm going to say it straight like he said it. Some brother saw the sisters walking in this white garment and disrespected her. And the brothers beat him up. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, when he heard the news, he said, you should have killed him. But listen. When you take his life over a woman that is virtuous, you did the right thing. Because a righteous woman is more valuable than silver and gold, brother. A virtuous woman, or a woman that has lived an unclean life but has decided to clean up herself, to get her life together, that's a woman worth dying for. And that's a woman worth killing over. I want you to hear me well, because I'm advocating this. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The women have to know that we love them, that we care about them, that we feel their hurt and their pain and their degradation, and we intend to do something about it. When they know it, they begin to respond to us differently, brothers. Then the nature of her that God gave her to console us. Oh, man. It's worth fighting for. Look, let me see what he put in the woman. Look at the Quran. He says to the woman, she is the consoler of the man. She is to give him peace and quiet of mind. If he just would be her maintenance, if he would maintain her properly, she will give this to you. You don't even have to ask for it. Just be who God made you to be, and it'll just come up out of her. What is in her? The desire to alleviate or lessen pain and grief for that man. And when we live in a world like this, brother, we're in a lot of pain. And you don't need to take Tylenol. You don't need to take Coke or morphine. Here she is. This is your pain killer right here. To console means to lessen sorrow or disappointment, to give solace or comfort, to cheer you up. What man in here doesn't need to be cheered up? But not cheered up because you're doing nothing. Cheered up because you're struggling to do something. And when you got a man that's struggling to do something, sister, then you got to know how to handle that man. Now I'm coming to you. Give me that hand, Mike. I want to walk a little bit here. Where is it? Sisters, you don't mind if I talk to you? When a man comes home from working out there in this crazy world, you got to be comfortable for him and good for him to look at. And you know how he fell in love with you? You know what you look like? Can you remember? You got to try to keep yourself like that. Many of you sisters who were so beautiful in your youth. Now, all of us as we get older, we're not as, as we were when we were young. I mean, that's the natural consequence of getting older. But we don't have to be totally out of it. When a man looks at you, in his mind, he remembers you the way you were. He knows there are going to be changes. But if the change becomes too drastic, and then you produce daughters that look just like you used to look, and you find him spending time with his daughters and less time with his wife. Have you thought about it? Think about it. When a man goes out to work, you want him to come home to you. In fact, while he's on the job, you want him thinking, I just can't wait for this job to be over. I can get home. And the way to do that, sisters, is when he goes out to work, don't settle down in front of the TV looking at no soaps. This is wasting your time. There's something in the nature of a man that even though he ain't clean, he likes a clean house. Yeah? Something in the nature of a man. He likes order, even if he's confused. So, when he comes home, I know, like my sister in Detroit, Aretha, said, all you want is a little respect. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. But if that man is working for you, then you have to do something to help him through. And the way you keep him in your house, keep yourself up. You see how that white woman is in the health club? My wife and I were down in the Caribbean a week or so ago, and we went to this resort hotel, and we saw an old white woman. And they were showing us around the resort, and when we went in the health club, this old white woman was up in there working out. She wanted to get her body tight. So somebody could wrap that body tight. I guess. Oh boy. That white woman was working. But sometimes you get the thought that nobody loves you. You get the thought that nobody cares, and probably they don't. But you should care. You should care about your health and your well-being and the way you appear to yourself. True? Now, when that man comes home, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, you should really make yourself beautiful for him. What does it take to put a curl in the hair? Just do something. What does it take to put on a little perfume and smell nice and look nice? So that when the man breaks the door, you are desired. Now, if he comes in and you've done all of that and you see him with a big frown on his face, don't get uptight. Something is on his screen, you know, in a computer. When somebody writes on the screen, you better read it. See what's written on his screen when he come in the door. Don't say, oh baby, I've been waiting for you. I got this fine meal all cooked, baby. Can you smell it? It's your favorite food. And you see him frowning. Then you change. You're not a good doctor. You got to watch your husband. What's on your mind? Because it's not sex. It's what's on his mind. That you got to clear the screen before you can write something else on the page. But if you don't know how to deal with his head, you lost him to the prostitute. She know how to deal with him. Hello, darling. She's smelling all sweet, acting all feminine, you know. And what she's trying to do is make her a regular customer. So that every Friday when he gets paid, before he sees you, he'll see her. And you know what he's going there for? Some comfort, some consolation, some peace and contentment of mind that he could have gotten at home if you took time to analyze what's wrong with his mind. And that's what you got to deal with today. If you want abuse to stop in the house, then you got to become a small psychologist, even psychiatrist. And you don't need to go to no psychology course from Jung or what's that other boy? Freud. and the other frauds. All you need to do is just deal with his head. You got to ask questions like a doctor. How are you, sweetheart? He make grunt. Don't get uptight. You know you had a hard day. Now you got to find a way to get in. But you ought to ask questions. You are much more subtle. You know how to use subtleties. Why not use it for good? How was your day, sweetheart? That was rough. Rough. You got to get him to talk about what happened. This is long before what you got in your mind is to take effect. I ain't got to say no more, right? If you handle his mind properly, I guarantee you there'll be less of this. Any man that is a man does not want to beat a woman. But sometimes, sisters, your mouth is so devastating. If he's not in control and he walks out, the poor man may hit you one blow and literally kill you, or cause you to go in the kitchen and get your turkey carver and start carving him. Sisters, what's demanded of you today, if you want success with a man, you have to deal with his mind. And this man here right now, he's a powder keg. Let me tell you why. Nature made every one of these brothers a potential producer. He's made to take the place of God. God wills and brings into existence what he wills. This man can only desire, but he lacks the power to bring into existence what he desires, so already he's frustrated. He knows he's in authority over you, but he cannot establish his authority because he doesn't have the knowledge that would enable him to govern and to manage the affairs of his own house. That makes him more frustrated. He calls the dog, and the dog won't come. He speaks to the children, and they turn their back on him. He's beat down at every turn. And the last beating that he can take is the beating that comes from you. He can't lash out at the world. He don't know how. Because the people that are messing him up are in high places. He never gets to them. He sees the cop on the corner with the stick and the gun. He don't know the people up top that are pulling the strings that keep him crushed. So he strikes out at the first line of offense, and that's usually his wife, his mother, his children, his friends, his companions. We're in bad shape. We need your help, sisters. And I'll tell you frankly, that's why I thank Allah every day of my life for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I want to say this to my wonderful Muslim brothers who are here. Elijah Muhammad took our women and put them in a class called the MGT and GCC class. because no one of us as men knew what to do with her. Since she's the woman of God from the very beginning, then God has to cause her to submit to him again. Then he will begin to shape her life that she will be a consoler of us. I was not the man to make my wife console me. I just didn't have the knowledge. But I came to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad with my wife. And that's the best way to come. Bring your wife with you. And she heard the message and accepted it before I did. And when I looked, she was going to the back to get her form. And I followed. She recognized truth. I'm glad she did. Because when they put her in the class, they taught her how to cook. They taught her how to sew. I was a poor man. I could not afford to take her to no Bonwood Teller, Saks Fifth Avenue, or the 5 and 10 cent store. But with the little money that I made, she went and bought beautiful fabric, and she took patterns and made herself garments and made herself beautiful, because in the class she could take nothing and make something out of it because she learned how to sew. When I came home, there was no pig on my table for me to eat. No bad food on my table, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught her what foods to eat and how to prepare it, that even though I was poor, I could be in good health. Because she respected him, he made her obey the law of God. So even though I wasn't quite the man that I should have been or could have been, she was not going to run out with another man. She was going to help me to become a man. And in truth, today, my wife will do anything within reason to comfort and console her husband. And I don't really have to ask. I thank Allah for making her like that. You know? And there's nothing that she wants within reason. If I can afford to give it to her, she got it. Why? Why is that? She gave me 9 children. That's a heck of a thing to do. One is bad enough, but when somebody gives you 9, and it got rough, because, you know, we didn't believe in no birth control. But brothers, let me tell you something. A woman needs a break. In between babies, a woman needs a break. And when a woman starts having babies, one right behind another, believe me, it is affecting her mentally, psychologically, emotionally. And it's not good for her. It's not good for the children. Really, it just isn't. And there's no sense in one person trying to populate the world by themselves, you know. Give something for somebody else to do, you know. But after giving me 9 children, then of course, life is gone by. But all the children are grown now. Now she got a life in front of her. When you have children, it's difficult to develop all of your talents because you have to sacrifice for your children. But when you have done your duty by your children, then you must develop yourself as a woman. Develop your intellect, develop your talents and your skills, and then give your skills to the building of a nation in which you and your children and your grandchildren can have peace, freedom, justice, and equality. So, I think I'll put a pin in this subject at this point. And if it is the will of Allah, I'll be back out on Wednesday to continue this. So let me close, and I don't want you to move, I just want you to bear with me. Let me close by saying, sisters, we have to stop the violence in the homes. We have to stop the man's violence against the female, and a lot of it you can prevent by being wise with the way you use your tongue. Please, sisters, those of you that have husbands, don't push them beyond what they can take. Please, don't do that. Don't be selfish women. Any man that's a Muslim that is involved in this work, I'm speaking now for these brothers that are with me. We're not here to build no church. We are here to build a nation. We don't want integration in the white man's world. We want to build an independent nation for our people. That demands sacrifice. If a man is willing to sacrifice to build a nation, what kind of wife should he have? Do you think the white man could build this nation stuck up under his woman all day long? Do you think that the early pioneers that caused this nation to be stolen from the Indians? Do you think they would have stolen from the Indians if they were sitting in their log cabins holding their woman's hand? She had a duty in that cabin, and that man had to get his musket and go out, and some days he'd be gone days and nights, but he'd come back with the fur over his shoulder. He had trapped some rabbits and whatnot. Then the woman could cook something. She loved that man. He went off fighting Indians. If he got back successful, what was she telling her children? There go your father. Ain't never home. I'm just sick of that man. Some of you breed disrespect into your children by the way you handle your husband. Don't you know a man that will work for you, let the man work? Let him work. Let him sacrifice. Help him to sacrifice, because the sacrifices that we make today to build a nation will free up you and your children and your children's children tomorrow. So don't be nagging him as long as he's doing his duty. Don't be so selfish that you want all his attention. I know I'm getting in deep water, but sisters, don't do that. First of all, you can't compete with God. And second of all, you shouldn't even try. God has the greatest demand on any man's life. And when a man is going to sacrifice to build something in the name of God for his wife and children and his people, encourage him. And when he comes home, make it pleasant for him. On Wednesday night, I will tell the brothers more on how we should act to bring the best out of the sisters. Because today, we're dealing with domestic violence. And really, in truth, she's brutalizing the children because she's so frustrated. She's the most unhappy woman that there is. A very unhappy woman, the black woman. And the children that you have, they come up under your unhappiness, and you are brutalizing them and really mistreating these wonderful creatures of God, your children. So we got to ease up all of this stress and tension so we can make life better for one another. I hope that there's something that I've said today that has been helpful to you. And I thank you for coming, and I thank you for listening as I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum.